So I was meeting with some high-end clients the other day, and I was struggling emotionally, just at a lower vibe, and I'll explain that more a little bit later. But before I knew it, I'm having all these thoughts like I'm not good enough for them, they won't want to work with me. Have you been there? I have, when I get assaulted by my thoughts and feelings. So this week we're going to talk about a process that is funny and puts our emotions in those times into perspective. So last week we talked about the school bus and how understanding the different parts of us and becoming the adult of our school bus and kicking out the people that don't belong in the bus, and how to listen and be there for all the little parts of us on the school bus, our younger versions, is so important. This week we're talking about our feelings, and we're going to put them in a way of looking at squirrels. And I've had some people think of it like looking at puppies or looking at little birds, but for me, in my brain, squirrels. And so let's just talk about that. I look at my brain as a bunch of cartoon squirrels with their emotions. They're the voices in my head, they're the emotions, they're all of the emotions. For example, and they're all of the low vibe emotions too. So I have the bully, and the bully always wants to remind me that I suck or make me small. And I have a people pleaser little squirrel, and the people pleaser squirrel just looks so nice and almost has a little halo around it. But really that people pleaser just wants to cave because it wants to avoid conflict and give the people or give the person what they want. Then I have the awkward squirrel, and the awkward squirrel in my mind has a really bad haircut because honestly, I think I was about 13. It was right before pictures, and I thought I'd beautify myself, and I gave myself this haircut, and the bangs were like shorter. Usually that happens when you're 7 or 8. I happened to be 13 and had some really awkward hair. And so whenever I think of this awkward squirrel, it always has kind of like this side glance and with its hair bangs way short and a little bit askew. And so that's that squirrel. And then I have the thinker, the one that's just too logical, thick glasses maybe, and it just doesn't want me to feel. It just wants to figure it out. And so that's what that little squirrel wants to tell me. And then I have the fearful squirrel. And that fearful squirrel wants to tell me, hey, it's a big bad world. Because that's kind of the impression I got when I was a kid, kind of from my mom. And I have this little squirrel, the fearful squirrel, and it's just wanting to tell me about the big bad world. And this one is always like, as I envision this little squirrel, he's always like shaking just a little bit, like just a little anxious, like those little puppies or those little dogs that just shake a little bit. That's kind of how this squirrel looks to me in my mind. Then I have the rebel, and when I think of the rebel, maybe it's my age, but I think of like Rambo, so it's got like a red bandana on it. But then there's like all sorts of other squirrels, and we all have them. It's more a matter of how big they are, and if the one squirrel is bullying the other squirrels. For example, we could have a perfectionistic squirrel, and for the people that I know that struggle with perfectionism, sometimes that squirrel will get really big and just wants to, affect all the other ones. And then there's the procrastinator squirrel. That would be a squirrel that's like, oh, tomorrow, just do it later. And then there's also the drama squirrel. That would be like always making things into a big story. And I definitely have that part, or that little squirrel as well. Some other squirrels that I think we can all relate to, because a lot of these are universal to some degree. We may have a shame squirrel, an imposter syndrome squirrel, a comparison squirrel that always wants to compare. So I just think of them as all of these feelings and all of these emotions, and just a bunch of little squirrels. And really the key to this, and the reason why I do this, is because it helps me detach from my feelings just enough to look at them and listen to them and find some humor in them, because then it just feels a little bit more manageable. And then it also explains too how, if I feed one squirrel too much and feed it Twinkies, then it can, become bigger, the bigger emotion, and kind of take over, all the other emotions and the other squirrels. And so it kind of gives me a visual for that. For example, I have the little fearful squirrel, and I try to keep all these squirrels pretty, pretty manageable size. But if I were to watch, for for if I were to watch movies that were scary, like in a way that would increase that fearful squirrel, that grows that fearful squirrel and then it starts to take over. And so just kind of being aware of like the natural squirrels in our head and in our lives and kind of how to work with them really can be helpful. And I have loved just thinking about it because it's just so humorous. And at night, I just want to put all the squirrels into bed with their little head caps and like, okay, we're just going to calm us all down and put all those squirrels to bed, and it's all great. Are you feeling stuck in with love, wealth, or peace? Well, you're not alone. Often it's a subconscious belief holding you back. That's why I combined life coaching and hypnotherapy together, so you can break through what's been keeping you stuck. Life coaching helps you shift your mindset, while hypnotherapy works deep within to reprogram limiting beliefs and memories. It's fast, it's effective, typically one session of each, and I have a few openings left. Are you ready for a change? Visit livebrighter.info and book your free consultation and see if this approach is right for you. See you then. So really, the human experience isn't the absence of emotion. It's more about understanding them. It's about listening to them. It's about sometimes giving them what they need. Because even though, like the fearful squirrel, let's give that another example. It's scared, it's frightened, but really it just needs to be soothed. It just needs to be like, hey, you're okay, you're safe, it's all good. And this isn't the big bad world, and we can work through this. And so just listen to, talk to, and train them. Because honestly, if we let the squirrels do whatever they want, they cause chaos. Have you ever seen like squirrels play in the forest? And they just love to play and chase and all sorts of things. For example, my daughter and I were recently hiking and we kept hearing this like thud and like thud right by us. And we're like, it's like almost like rocks were coming down at us. And what we found out is there was a squirrel throwing pine cones. And so as the hikers would go by, the squirrel would throw pine cones. So squirrels are just like, that's probably why I have squirrels in my head, is because they're just like a little mischievous, a little nasty, but so stinking cute too. So it's just a fun way to think about it. So one thing, like on the story I was first talking about, something to know about our squirrels, that you look for the acronym HALT. So HALT stands for hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. And anytime you have one or more of those acting up, they make all the other squirrels enhance. And so really I remember that because as I notice, like I'm hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or any of those combinations, to literally halt and take care of myself. So in that first example, I had forgotten to eat a snack, which is not like me. So I was hungry and I was angry and I was lonely and I was tired, and that just let the squirrels have some fun that I didn't really appreciate. So that's really good to know. So mental health, again, is not the absence of squirrels or the absence of, the bus, but really understanding and making room for them. Because again, these visualizations, they just put a little distance with our emotions or thoughts and a little understanding. And it's like, oh, that's just the people-pleasing squirrel. And I can just say, yes, I understand you want to please people, little squirrel, but in this case, it's better for us to just be clear with our speech and not focus on pleasing them. So it's just helpful to understand and give a little distance. It also gives us some insight as to feeding the squirrels. For example, I know some people that struggle with comparison, and it is just, when they compare, they put themselves as not enough. It gives them proof for not enoughness. And a lot of times they find that social media is a way that feeds that squirrel. And so for them, like taking social media breaks has been super helpful. So that's why it's like good to understand how we're made, what squirrels we're dealing with, which squirrels in our life like to get a little bit bigger, how to not feed them Twinkies, and all of that. It also helps me understand self-care, because a lot of people are like, self-care, I just don't understand. Is it pedicures every week? But really, it has to do with our school bus and our squirrels. It has to do with, like on the school bus from example from last week, it has to do with being kind to our younger versions of ourselves, listening to them, understanding them, having an awareness. And that's the same with the squirrels example. Self-care is not saying you just be quiet. It's like, oh, I see that you're struggling with a little bit of shame. And and thinking of it as a squirrel and just being like wanting to take care of it and having some compassion on it. And that really is the gist of self-care and love, is you're willing to accept, acknowledge, listen, and work with what you've been given, because we all have human emotions and we all have younger versions of ourselves. And so this is just a really great way to get some perspective, add some humor, and do some work on ourselves and do some self-love. So, and it's also great for if you have somebody else in your life that can relate to this. My husband and I joke, and it's like, well, how is your school bus doing? And he'll say, well, I've actually just put a sock in all their mouths and I'm not even listening to them. Or he'll ask me, like, what are your squirrels doing tonight? And I'm like, well, I'm actually really struggling with the imposter syndrome squirrel right now. And I'm also struggling with, whatever. And it's just kind of a fun way to communicate and understand each other a little bit more. So hopefully this helped you out. If you want to create your own visualization with puppies or birds or whatever else, it's just a nice way to understand our emotions, because as humans we all have them, and it's not necessarily good or bad. It's about understanding and making room for them, and that's much better than if we were to react or stuff it. We got to take care of our squirrels, or take care of our little puppies, and be kind to them. So make it a great day. I hope this has been fun for you. I hope you can use this in your own life. And if this has been helpful, pass this along. Grow 1% a day. Stay tuned for our next episode.